Picture this. You're at a beach bar, Jimmy Buffett's playing, and you're sipping a pina colada thinking life is good. The bartender slides over a bottle of aged rum and you're like, ah yeah, the drink of pirates in tropical paradise. Well, I hate to ruin your vacation vibes, but that bottle you're holding, it's basically liquid genocide with a splash of lime. Oh yeah, it tastes like centuries of human trafficking with notes of, is that colonial exploitation I detect? See, rum didn't just accidentally happen to exist during slavery, it was slavery. This sweet little spirit literally bought and sold human beings, funded empires, and turned the Caribbean into history's most profitable torture chamber. So grab your Mai Tai and let's dive into how paradise became purgatory, one distillery at a time. Our story starts with Europe's sugar addiction, and I mean that literally. By the 1600s, Europeans were mainlining sugar like it was cocaine, which, fun fact, hadn't been invented yet, so sugar was basically their cocaine. The Caribbean became Europe's personal sugar dealer, and guess who got volunteered to do all the work? Spoiler alert, it wasn't volunteers. Enslaved Africans were forced to work sugar plantations under conditions that would make a medieval torture chamber look like a spa day. We're talking 16-hour days in 100-degree heat, wielding machetes the size of swords, all while plantation owners sipped lemonade and complained about their profit margins. But here's where it gets really twisted. Someone looked at that sticky, gross byproduct of sugar production, the stuff called molasses, and thought, you know what? I bet I can turn this waste into liquid gold. And they were absolutely right. They discovered they could ferment and distill molasses into rum. Suddenly, plantations weren't just making sugar, they were making the most potent, cheapest booze in the new world. The result? Rum became so valuable that plantation owners were literally swimming in money. Well, metaphorically swimming. They were actually swimming in blood, sweat, and tears of enslaved people, but the money part sounds nicer for their conscience. And this is where rum stops being just a drink and becomes something far more sinister. Currency. Human currency. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the triangular trade, history's most efficient system for turning human suffering into profit. It worked like this, and I want you to really let this sink in. Step 1. Ships loaded with molasses sailed from the Caribbean to New England. Step 2. New England distilled that molasses into rum, millions of gallons per year. Step 3. That rum sailed to West Africa, where it was traded for enslaved human beings. Step 4. Those people were shipped to the Caribbean to make more sugar and molasses. It's the circle of life, if the circle of life was designed by Satan with a business degree. This wasn't some small-scale operation run by a few bad apples. By the 1700s, New England had over 140 rum distilleries. Rhode Island alone was producing 500,000 gallons annually. That's enough rum to get the entire population of Boston drunk for a month, which honestly might explain some of their historical decisions. But here's the part that'll really ruin your tropical vacation fantasy. Rum wasn't just used to buy enslaved people. It was specifically formulated to be the perfect trade good for human trafficking. Distillers would add extra ingredients to make it more potent and longer lasting for ocean voyages. African chiefs and merchants would literally calculate human worth in gallons of rum. Oh, this healthy young man, that'll be 50 gallons of your finest. This woman with farming skills, 75 gallons plus some tobacco. The British Navy even institutionalized this horror show by giving sailors daily rum rations, half a pint per day. They called it liquid courage, but it was really liquid complicity in genocide. Now let's talk about pirates, because apparently even the outlaws of the sea couldn't escape rum's dark orbit. Sure, pirates loved rum. It was cheap, strong, and readily available in every Caribbean port. But here's the kicker. Even pirate rum came from the same blood-soaked supply chain. When Blackbeard was getting hammered on rum, he was literally drinking the product of human misery. Nothing says, stick it to the man, like consuming products made by the exact system you're supposedly rebelling against. Meanwhile, back in civilized Europe, entire cities were getting rich off this trade. Bristol, Liverpool, London, these weren't just ports, they were money laundering operations for human trafficking, and rum was their washing machine. British merchant families built mansions that would make Downton Abbey look like a shed. The Colston family in Bristol literally built statues of themselves with slave trade money. Even today, you can walk through these cities and see buildings, streets, and monuments paid for with rum profits. And here's where it gets really fun. Some of today's biggest rum brands trace their roots directly back to these colonial operations. Bacardi started in Cuba in 1862, built on the infrastructure of slave trade era sugar plantations. Captain Morgan, named after a literal pirate who probably consumed more enslaved people-produced rum than water. So slavery ended. Problem solved, right? Oh, you sweet, naive viewer, the 19th century didn't end slavery, it just gave it a makeover and a new LinkedIn profile. After abolition, the same plantations kept running with freed people who were now technically employees, except their wages were often paid in company scrip that could only be spent at company stores at company prices. It's like slavery, but with extra steps and better PR. Fast forward to today, and guess what? The rum industry is still built on exploitation, just with better marketing campaigns. Sugarcane workers in parts of the Caribbean and Latin America still work grueling hours for poverty wages. Some earn less per day than Americans spend on a single cocktail. Meanwhile, the global rum market is worth well over $15 billion annually. Diageo, which owns Captain Morgan, made $15.8 billion in revenue last year. The average sugarcane worker makes about $10 per day. But don't worry, these companies have corporate social responsibility pages on their websites, so everything's fine now. Nothing says we've learned from history like maintaining the exact same profit margins while adding a diversity statement to your annual report. And here's a fun modern twist. Climate change is now threatening the very islands that rum helped to destroy through centuries of deforestation and exploitation. Rising sea levels are literally swallowing the places where millions suffered to create this industry. It's like the ultimate comic justice. The wealth extracted from these lands is now contributing to their destruction. The Caribbean is drowning in the consequences of its own exploitation. Meanwhile, rum companies are pivoting to sustainable marketing while the communities that built their fortunes face unprecedented hurricanes, droughts, and economic devastation. Bacardi talks about environmental responsibility while operating in territories that are literally disappearing under rising oceans. The same islands that once enriched European empires through forced labor are now being abandoned as economically unviable when natural disasters strike. Funny how that works. Profitable when you're extracting wealth, disposable when you need to invest in recovery. So not only did rum fuel centuries of human trafficking, it's now part of the climate catastrophe that's erasing the evidence of its own crimes. That's not just dark humor, that's apocalyptic irony. So there you have it, the real story behind that innocent-looking bottle at your beach bar. Every sip connects you to a 400-year legacy of human trafficking, imperial conquest, and systematic exploitation. But wait, there's more, because apparently this story needed an even darker final chapter. Today's rum industry has mastered the art of historical amnesia. They'll spend millions on advertising campaigns featuring pristine beaches and happy locals, while conveniently forgetting that those same beaches were once landing sites for slave ships. Bacardi's marketing shows crystal clear waters and carefree islanders, but they don't mention that those waters were once stained with the blood of rebellion and suffering. Captain Morgan's ads feature swashbuckling adventure, but somehow skip over the part where the real Captain Morgan tortured indigenous people and traded enslaved Africans. We've turned the sites of historical atrocities into tourist destinations. People vacation in the Caribbean, sipping rum on beaches where slave ships once unloaded human cargo. Hotels are built on the foundations of former plantations, and tourists take Instagram photos at the same locations where families were torn apart forever. Rum didn't just fuel pirates and naval expeditions, it fueled one of history's most efficient systems for turning human beings into profit margins. The next time someone talks about the good old days or simpler times, remind them that those times were only simple if you weren't the one being bought and sold by the gallon. Look, I'm not here to be your moral compass or tell you what to drink, But maybe we can stop pretending that history happened in a vacuum. Maybe we can admit that every time we romanticize the golden age of piracy or dream about Caribbean escapes, we're whitewashing a Holocaust that funded empires. Every rum cocktail connects you to a supply chain that treated human beings as inventory. Every tropical vacation fantasy is built on plantations where people died so Europeans could get drunk. But hey, at least now you know why they call it spirits, because the ghosts of rum's victims are still haunting every bottle. If this video made you question your next vacation cocktail, smash that like button, subscribe for more uncomfortable truths about your favorite drinks, and let me know in the comments, what other seemingly innocent beverage should we completely ruin for you next? Because sometimes the smoothest drinks have the roughest histories. Cheers, I guess.